I want to thank our reader, Nancy Wirtz, for the great reading, and also Hunter Miller for his reading of the Veterans reading, which we will have later in this message. And Gary Lynn Floyd for the wonderful music, as well as our music team. They always have music that supports the message. This month of November, our theme is gratitude, and today the message is Eyes of the Beholder. That's to say that we take time for a sacred exploration of perception, of gratitude, of optimism, and how our inner lens shapes not just how we see the world, but how we create our own world. And of course, I'm going to invite you to explore gratitude as both a spiritual practice and an energetic force that harmonizes us with being able to see from the eyes of the divine. We often hear beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and I love what it said in the reading today. How you choose to see life is how life responds to you. Think about that for a minute. It's really worth thinking about. Is it not truly what we mean when we say beauty is in the eyes of the beholder? So while you ponder that, allow me to give you a question for the week. What is the one choice you might make today to notice how perception creates your experience, to practice gratitude even when you don't feel it, and to see optimism as a spiritual courage? One more time. What is the one choice you might make today to notice how perspective creates experience, to practice gratitude even when you don't feel it, and to see optimism as spiritual courage? Before we dive into the message today, since Veterans Day is Tuesday, I wanted to take a brief moment to honor our veterans. And since the Wholehearted Living Journal had a great reading that was in tune with our topic today, I thought you might like to hear it. So I invited my grandson, who is a veteran, to read it for us.
Hello, my name is Hunter Miller, and I am a veteran and Reverend Larry's grandchild. Our veterans reading is the November 11th excerpt from Wholehearted Living, An Enchanted Journey for Your Soul, 365 Days of Inspiration, by Christian Sorensen and Katherine Economou, entitled Veterans Day. Starting with a quote from George Washington, "The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional to how they perceive the veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their nation." Take a moment of silence this Veterans Day at 11 o'clock to honor those who served in the United States military. This time and date honor when the Allies and Germany implemented an armistice at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, marking the end of the war to end all wars. You will be joining other allies in Canada, Australia, and Great Britain who observed November 11th Remembrance Day. Norman Schwarzkopf stated, "It doesn't take a hero to order men or women into battle. It takes a hero to be one of those who goes into battle." As a nation, we have learned that in war, there are no unwounded soldiers. Yet the brave knowingly go out to meet the danger and glory that awaits them. There was something inside these young men and women that was more than muscle. It was a will to do whatever it takes. Douglas MacArthur said, "Americans never quit." American veterans embody the ideals upon which America was founded in 1776, and those ideals of freedom still live to this day because of the United States military veterans of war. At 11 a.m., take a moment to fully appreciate those who served in the military to secure your freedom. Then, reflect on how you were using that freedom in your life. I'm grateful to all those who fought for our freedom, and thank you all for supporting our veterans this Tuesday.
To desire to serve in the military is to desire to protect, to defend, and to uphold peace. That desire, when seen through spiritual eyes, truly is a sacred calling. Service is something greater than oneself. In the Bible, John 15:13, we read, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." From this lens, the military isn't just about defense. It's about devotion. Those in service learn to see through discipline, courage, and unity. Wow. So do remember to pause this Tuesday at 11 a.m. and also to say thanks to all the veterans in your life. Now, back to the message about Eyes of the Beholder. For each of us, the challenge as spiritual soldiers is to behold peace, even in the face of conflict. As Ernest Holmes said, peace is not something you fight for, it is something you become. Peace is not something you fight for, it's something you become. Those who see with spiritual eyes transform duty into love. They transform command into compassion and battle into awakening. Last week I quoted Ernest Holmes from The Science of Mind. Life is a mirror, and we reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it. Holmes reminds us that our thoughts are lenses. We can't perceive love through fear's filter or abundance through lack's glasses. The universe reflects the consciousness of its beholder. If you see lack, you get more lack. If you see abundance, you get more abundance. Essentially, we become the artist of our lives, painting our lives with our perspective. If we see beauty, we create beauty. There were two soldiers standing at the same sunrise before a battle. One saw fear and uncertainty, and the other saw courage and purpose. It was the same dawn, yet one beheld darkness, the other one light. It's not that either was wrong. Personally, I'd rather be the optimist than see the light. As Lao Tzu taught us, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That's what it's all about. Life is in the eyes of the beholder. You know, I like to say the world I see is the world in me. I say it because it's true. We see the world from our own perspective, with our eyes. And our eyes are impacted by our own feelings, our own emotions, and by those things that we've experienced thus far in our life, and all of those mentors and teachers that have impacted our lives. Perspective shapes everything. Our relationships, our emotions, and our destiny. When we shift how we look at life, life begins to look different. Have you ever noticed how two people can attend the same event and one leaves saying something like, "That was the most uplifting experience," and another might say, "Oh, that was so long and the coffee was cold." Same event, different beholders. It's not what we look at that matters. It's the eyes with which we see that determines how we see something or someone. And it's not just beauty that's in the eyes of the beholder. Everything is in the eyes of the beholder. The Dalai Lama would say, choose to be optimistic. It feels better. I have to agree with that. Yet I get that sometimes things do look grim for whatever reason. Sometimes optimism and gratitude are not easy. And I do not suggest pretending that everything's perfect. I would suggest, however, that you consider thinking and saying, even here in this challenge, I choose to look for love, or I choose to look for a purpose. I choose to look for something I can learn. It's a much more optimistic way of looking at it than another challenge. And A Course in Miracles tells us, the world you see is what you gave it, nothing more than that. It is the witness to your state of mind. The witness to your state of mind. So let gratitude and perception shift your state of mind. When you're thankful, you're saying to the universe, I trust there's good here, even if I don't see it yet. I trust that there's good here. So here's a spiritual practice. I call it choosing gratitude. Think of one thing in your life that's difficult right now. Just whatever the first thing is that comes to your mind. Write down one possible blessing hidden in that challenge. That's gratitude at work. It's training your eyes to behold the light rather than the darkness. Simple gratitude changes your energetic frequency. It tunes your inner radio to joy and possibilities, and you can begin to see with the eyes of love. You know, some people call optimists Pollyannas. I've certainly been called that enough in my life. I don't believe that optimism is naivety. I think it's spiritual courage. I see optimism as a decision to behold hope, even when the world offers reasons to doubt any hope exists or that any good can come from a certain situation. Jonathan Parker wrote this, and I love these words. You attract into your life the people and situations that match the images you hold in your mind. Let me repeat those words. You attract into your life the people and situations that match the images you hold in your mind. Is that not saying that our world is in our own eyes and how we see it? Optimism is seen from the eyes of possibility rather than limitation. It's that inner wisdom that says, what if this turns out to be even better than I imagined? I bet everyone listening has had something in their life that turned out better than they could have even imagined. I know I have. My dean at the University of Portland said he wasn't going to support me for tenure, and it was because I was too outspoken. I know you can't possibly imagine that. Anyway, it seemed devastating to me at the moment, yet it turned out that I got a job in private industry that paid me twice what I was making at the University of Portland. And being a single parent mom, that extra money made a big difference. I look at the days I spent in anguish back then and realize if I had embraced hope and those words of Jonathan Parker, which I didn't know back then, how much happier a summer I would have had way back then in the 80s. You know, Buddha tells us we are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. So watch what you think. Pay attention to your thoughts. They do become things. And try this spiritual practice if you're feeling pessimistic. The perception shift. Write down one thing you're struggling with, and then write 3 ways of seeing it differently. Through fear's eyes, through gratitude's eyes, and through love's eyes. Notice how you experience each shift with each change of perspective. And here's another practice that I think is helpful when we're trying to notice how we see the world. I call it I Spy Spirit. Think of something ordinary that you see every day. It might be a coffee cup, it might be a car, or a tree, or a stack of papers. Now, reflect on what spiritual lesson or beauty you can see in it. Here's a couple examples. Maybe you happen to look at your coffee mug and it had a little chip or a crack. That might become a metaphor for imperfection holding love, because I know that everybody loves their coffee. And maybe you saw a car that had a little dent in it. A dented car might be a metaphor for things that impact us in life, and yet we can keep on going. That little dent or that little challenge didn't keep us from moving forward. Or what about this practice? One of my favorites this week. I call it Eyes of Love. Every morning for an entire week, commit to doing the following. Look in the mirror and say, I behold the divine in me. When you meet others that day, silently say, I behold the divine in you. And before bed, list 3 things that you choose to see differently. Katherine Economou tells us, when we look through the eyes of love, even the storm becomes a teacher, not a threat. When our eyes are attuned to spirit, we stop labeling experiences as good or bad. We begin to behold wholeness, to see everything as part of the unfolding divine plan. You know, I had a friend who used to say, I've decided to look at life through rose-colored glasses. And one time I just couldn't resist, and I said back, good idea, but maybe get a prescription lens because spirit likes clarity. Anyway, today the eyes of the beholder hold the key to transformation. When we behold through spirit's eyes, the world changes. Not because it suddenly becomes perfect, but because we remember that it already was perfect, just the way it turned out. A shift from judgment to love, from pessimism to optimism, is the essence of beholding. So I want to end with this quote from A Course in Miracles, which is one of my favorites. The holiest place on earth is where an ancient hatred has become a present love. When we see with the eyes of love, and when we see with the eyes of spirit, all is love. So in summary, how might you learn to see with the eyes of spirit this month? Well, recognize that perspective creates your experience. The world you see is from your eyes and your perspective. So shift how you look at life if you want to make it look different. And then practice gratitude even when you don't feel it. Trust that there's good in every challenge that shows up in your life. We know that God is in it somewhere, so good is in it somewhere. And know that gratitude can shift your state of mind. See optimism as spiritual courage. See with the eyes of possibility rather than with the eyes of limitation. And quit labeling things good and bad. They just are what they are. Spy spirit. That is to say, see wholeness in everything. So here's your affirmation for the week. How is it I so willingly, energetically, and effortlessly notice how perspective creates my experience? Practice gratitude even when I don't feel it. And see optimism as spiritual courage. And the challenge for you this week is to make a conscious choice every day to behold the divine in yourself and in others that you meet. Determine one way you'd like to change your life situation and see with optimistic eyes of love, and then do it. Commit to using a spiritual practice that enhances your ability to be optimistic and to be grateful and have your eyes be those of spirit. And you can use ones that I made up, or you can use your own. Let's pray. So, taking a deep, nourishing breath, I want to close with a blessing that's inspired to help us remember to see the good in all things. So we just ask Divine Presence. May each of us remember to see daily. I choose to see through love's eyes. May we be optimistic and know that gratitude shifts our life. And may we embrace those words of Reverend Dr. Katherine Economou. When we look through the eyes of love, even the storm becomes a teacher, not a threat. Divine Spirit, what I know to be the absolute truth is that each of us heard something today that's helping us to live with more gratitude and more optimism, and to create our world through a looking glass of loving eyes. I see each of us being the embodiment of divine love. Guide our steps with wisdom. Fill our days with gentleness and with vision. And let us each be rooted in peace and filled with love. Choosing today to live in divine alignment with the truth of our being, knowing that all that we are and all that we might become is right there within us. I'm grateful for each person who chose to spend some time with us today. I'm grateful we can go forth today with joy and courage and an open heart, and know that we are guided to live seeing through those eyes of spirit. And it's from gratitude and great joy, bliss, and blessings that I release these words into that divine yes, knowing the truth. They're already done. So I can say amen, and we can affirm it together. And so it is. And again, let me thank everyone for donating so that we can enjoy the music that we have each week and special guest speakers, because I know you love those guest speakers. It's good to have somebody else's perspective on topics. And it helps us to just have a presence on this online opportunities. So thank you again for your donations. Enjoy our offertory song.